in the juvenile detention center here in Mecklenburg County. We had a very robust discussion in there, looking at 3 different options. With one, the state of North Carolina operating it. Second is the Mecklenburg County Sheriff to reopen Jail North facility for kids. And the third was an option for the county to operate a detention center here. We've talked about a lot of numbers budget-wise. We've talked about programming. We've talked about how we can partner with the school system to make sure our kids are educated. And where we ended up is that we are going to, the Children's Alliance is going to convene a meeting with budgetary officers from the county, from the Sheriff's Department, and from the state to come into the room and have a conversation about how we can work towards coming up with a viable budget so that the sheriff can reopen the Jail North. The budgetary people have not been in the room together, at least all 3 of them together at one time. We feel like that's important for the purposes of trying to make sure that we can maximize the opportunity to reopen a facility here. The reason that's important is because the youth from Mecklenburg County who are currently detained by order of the court in the past have been scattered all over the state of North Carolina. We've had kids as far away as 3.5, 4 hours away from Charlotte. That makes it very challenging and difficult to be able to do case planning for them, for their attorneys to have access to them about their pending charges. There's to have continuity in the school system, because when they're placed out of the county, they have to disenroll from Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools and re-enroll in a different school system. And then when they come back to this community, which they ultimately will, all these kids are going to, these are our kids from Mecklenburg County, they have to re-enroll in school, which sometimes is a very difficult and bureaucratic process to do. So that's sort of where we are. We're going to convene this meeting. We're going to move forward. The state has been at the table with us consistently with their checkbook, saying that they are in a position to help fund some of this. The sheriff has been with us from the beginning on this process of trying to figure out how we can reopen it. So that's sort of where we are. And the county now has been having conversations, and they're at the table with us. So let me pause there and see what questions you may have. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Greg. So you mentioned 3 options. So as of right now, you are deciding that the sheriff will be the one running it, or is it like the 3 options are still on the table? You don't know who's going to run it yet.
The 3 options are still on the table. We're going to focus our energy initially on looking at the budget that the sheriff says it's going to take to run that program and figure out whether we can make it work.
And we're still looking at that $15-point-something million, or?
The number we were given today is $17-point-something million. Which is a real challenge budgetarily, because the state and the county split the cost of detention, and the detention cost per day is $300 a day, and $17 million is a whole lot more than $300 a day for kids. So we've got to really take a look at that with the sheriff and the county and the state to figure out if are there ways we can maximize the use of that budget.
I know staffing was also a big concern, and I know, we talked from the panel about the 96 people needing an extra and needing a team to hire, train, et cetera. Where are you guys at?
The sheriff spoke very clearly about that. I mean, he can speak to that in a second. It's a challenge because there's competition in law enforcement on how to hire folks to do this kind of work. He's competing with other organizations and agencies. He's got staffing issues himself at Jail Central. So, it is a challenge. We believe that there's a way that we can partner to help relieve some of that stress, maybe even having the city and the county and the state offer some resources to be able to help do that recruitment and training. So we're looking at all those models.
What about the current Jail North facility? Depending on who ends up running this juvenile detention center, would they always, no matter what, whether it's the state, county, use that facility that's already built?
The Children's Alliance position is that facility has been operated in the past by the sheriff and was an excellent program and was built for detention. It doesn't make sense to ask the state to come in and spend multiple millions of dollars building another facility when we have a facility that's available to use. So yeah, our consideration would be, no matter who runs it, we would like it to be done at Jail North.
Is it settled whether this would be we're fully reopening, we're going to go to the top capacity, or if it would be more gradual? Is that something y'all have figured out at this point?
We've asked the sheriff today to bring in a budget to, that would cover 48 kids. They pointed out today that whether it's 48 kids or up to 70 kids, the budget's going to be pretty much the same because they have to staff it. The large part of the budget is staffing. We are comfortable with starting off on a smaller number. We currently have around 30, how many Mecklenburg kids have we got in detention?
Today we got 42.
42 kids in detention, so we're looking at starting off, doesn't have to be starting off serving 96 kids, maybe start off at 48, a smaller number, and try to build from there.
So you mentioned kind of focusing on the budget and so forth. Are there deadlines? I know Mr. Lassiter, you mentioned like getting things together before the county sets a budget, right, in the summer and so forth. So what are your deadlines that you guys are trying to meet, and is it before the Mecklenburg County sets their budget?
As I said beginning, we've been at this for over 2 years, and we would like it done yesterday. We know that we're in the middle of a county budget process, that the sheriff's has got a budget he's got to work through and get created from, or get approved by the county. The county at large has got a budget, so yeah, it's a critical time frame, so we're going to move with this pretty quick.
Since you guys have been working on it for about 2 years, is there a realistic way that this can get done by the end of this calendar year?
Yes.
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 Ideally, if everything goes the right direction and so forth, when would you want to see it actually operational, as far as Jail North and open?
I would love to have the kids in jail. We don't say jail, we say detention center, and we say residence. I know that's hard for people to understand, but humanity is big in my book. I would love to see our kids inside this facility at the end of the summer. We're willing to do it. We're willing to do whatever it takes to do it. The blueprint is our blueprint. The blueprint that we had before is the blueprint. But the cost is different now than when it was open previously. Will we have to sacrifice and do some other things? Of course. Everybody talks about the kids. We talk about the kids. We had a direct personal relationship with the kids. Unfortunately, some of those kids from the juvenile detention center previously are still with us, and they're at Central. And so, yes, it's going to take money. It's going to take shifting some things around. It may be taking, alleviating some things to bring the cost down. As we say, we've been here at this for a couple of years. And some things have changed. The progress has changed. Some of the kids have moved closer. But to operate that facility at Jail North is the best for everybody. It's just finding the right formula and the right funding for it and how we can come up with that. And that's where we are.
We have made good progress, considerably good progress in the last 2 years. The state has worked with us and got most of our kids closer to us, which they're not as scattered as they were before. We've got a host of community stakeholders now that understand this issue. The question was asked in that room with almost 40 people, is there anyone in this room who doesn't believe that our kids need to be here in Mecklenburg County? And absolutely everyone agreed. So it's just trying to figure out how we can make this work. Judge Ross, do you want to say anything? She co-facilitated our meeting today.
I just want to thank the sheriff for his commitment to bringing our kids back to Mecklenburg County and working with the state to find a path budgetarily forward. And I hope that our county and state and the sheriff can look at kind of get into the weeds of this and find a solution that can reopen the facility at Spectre Drive for our juveniles. I think that this has been framed as a choice between Cabarrus and Mecklenburg, and that's not actually what the choice is. I mean, our population is growing in the state. Juvenile detention facilities in the state are over capacity today. The need for additional facilities and beds exists today and will grow over time. And there's a need for additional beds. And the choice is actually going to be between Mecklenburg County and Duplin County. So we will either do this in Mecklenburg and make this investment in Mecklenburg and keep the kids who will be the center of growth, even if the per capita rate of delinquent acts remains steady over the next 5 or 10 years. The choice will be, do we invest in that, in growing the capacity in Mecklenburg, or are we going to send our kids to Duplin County over 3.5 hours away? And I'm pleased that we've had that commitment of our sheriff to find a path forward to make that investment here. And I'm optimistic that the county and the state and the sheriff can get down in the weeds on these numbers and find a way to make it happen.
Sheriff, for the 90-plus employees that would be needed to reopen, would those all be new hires, or would you bring some from Central back?
No, we cannot bring anybody from Central. That is going to be the big lift of finding 98 people, hiring 98 people, then training 98 people. So when I said to the young lady, I wish it would happen during the summer, we needed to start now. Hiring 98 people, and we have to understand a couple of things that hurt us. It's the way that we now depict law enforcement. That hurts us. That hurts us. No matter what you think, people would rather go and work somewhere else than work in law enforcement. Then we have to compete against CMPD and all the other townships to hire the 98 people. We think that the way that we will offer it to these new 98 people, that your ratio will be different than if you work at the main facility. The main facility, you have a pod supervisor and 20 to 40 people to supervise. At the juvenile detention center, it will be 1 employee and 8 juveniles. So we hope by selling it that way, we would be able to hire more people. But staffing will have to come from the general public.
Right.
Do you think it's possible by the end of the summer?
If we make law enforcement a career that we love again, if you think about it, in talking to other law enforcement agencies, we have made it a bad career. And people don't want to work for a bad team. But I think it's possible that we could hire some people. We're going to give a great stab at it, as they say. We need it. We want it. We know that we will be the best to run it because we ran it before and was best in the state. And I think that's why they're here. But we want to make sure that it's not us having the disagreement. Myself and Mr. Lassiter have hundreds of conversations about this in Raleigh and in Charlotte. It's just that, are you willing to invest into your kids? Everybody says that. They wanted the kids to have the best. And we want our kids to have the best clothes. But are you willing to pay the price for those clothes? And are you ready to pay the price for these kids? And we're willing to open it. We're willing to run it. It is always inspected every month. So it's not a lot of that. But when we're talking about maintenance, we're talking about food services, we're talking about mental health services and medical service. And then the biggest one that I'm going to always stick on is programming. You know, programming these kids, putting these kids in programming, and so they will return better to the society. And that's the biggest issue.
Billy, you want to say anything?
I would just say that we have to be on a quick timeline if we're going to get this done by the end of summer, because we got to get the county budget to pass. We got to get a state budget to pass, and you're all probably aware that the state budget has not passed last year. So we're in a process right now where we're trying to make a new offer to the General Assembly about what things are needed as far as juvenile justice, but all of state government are needed right now. But to get that proposal forward, I need what we got today, which is a commitment from the sheriff to say we want to do this. And so now I can go back to the General Assembly and back to the governor and say that we're on a path forward, trying to move forward on this facility, and we've got to get a ultimate, what is the budget ask going to look like to make that happen now that we've got a commitment. And I think there was always a commitment that we always wanted to do this, but I think everybody at the table today was committed to the idea of let's see how we can do this, what are the resources that we need to make it happen, and I need those numbers pretty quick if we're going to get it done. But this is the right thing for you in Mecklenburg County. It keeps your kids here. It makes transition back into education much easier. They're your kids. We need a commitment in the community to say there are kids, even when you make a mistake, you're still a kid that's redeemable, and there's an opportunity for you. That's why the programming is so important that the sheriff just talked about. The education is so important. You want that kid, when they leave a juvenile detention facility, to be better off than when they walked in the door and better able to reintegrate back into your community. And that's what we're trying to create here, is a program where those young people can reenter back into society in a much more productive way.
Deputy Secretary, just to be crystal clear, as of today, the priority is to increase resources and funding from the state, but for the sheriff and the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office to still run Jail North.
That's what, we got a commitment
Yes.
today from the sheriff that he wants to do that. And so I think if that is the option that the county wants to do, then absolutely we're on 100% on board. The other options that Frank talked about today were ones that we've thrown on the table. The state has always tried to be an active partner in this and tried to make sure that every option was looked at. But I think the best option would be, because he already ran a successful model. We know it works. And so let's go back to that model that we know that worked. Let's try to figure out how we get all the resources and the numbers together to make that happen now.
We were also very fortunate to have some of our county commissioners there. Would you like to say anything, Susan?
Sure. I think what I would want to say is, we saw today in that room that there is a will to make this happen. And there's a saying, where there's a will, there's a way. Only problem is, I'm not sure if that saying really holds true here. Because there's a huge divide between the amount of money the state is willing to pay. Mostly this is around staffing, these costs. And if you have a state that's willing to pay in the 30,000s for a position, and you have a county where you need at least in the 60s, there's a huge divide. And so the will is there. Is the way there? That's the part. When you have a state that can't even pass a budget, it's very difficult to trust that we can get those funds. And so this is going to all have to come together. And my hope is that where there is a will, there is a way. But I'm not sure we can really bank on that right now. So that's the big question.
I'm Representative Laura Budd. I represent House District 103 down in South Mecklenburg, but my first job was as a guardian ad litem attorney and advocate, and I had teenagers. So this is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. So I am the perennial optimist. I think there is a way forward, and that was one of the reasons I attended today, was because what I needed to better understand was, what are the options? What are the pathways? Where are the obstacles and the challenges? Where do we need to make adjustments legislatively so that we can invest back into the community, back into the children, so that when they are reentering society, that it's not a steep hill for those children to climb, that when they exit the system, as we call it, it's as seamless and smooth as possible, not just for that child and their family, but for the community at large. So I want to thank everybody who came out today, from all the different departments, the agencies, from Raleigh, that sort of thing, because this is what we needed. Because I guess in the sense, I am the way, with several of the other state lawmakers in the General Assembly, we have to better understand what tax dollars are needed, where we need to invest those so that the return on the investment yields the dividend we're all looking for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Any last questions?
Judge Trosh, could you, I know you are in juvenile court, and it is a huge passion of yours, but I just don't think a lot of people who watch and read quite understand the impact from your perspective when we had Jail North before, and now when we don't have it. Specifically, are you seeing more of the same faces in your courtroom, repeat juvenile offenders, now than you were beforehand?
So I'm going to frame it this way. About 97% of kids who are in detention centers are diagnosed with a mental health disorder, and almost all of them have one or more traumatic experience. About 78% meet the diagnostic criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder. And research shows that the number one thing that helps a child build resilience and heal from trauma is connection. Connection to one safe, supportive adult. So when children are removed from their community, from their family, from their school, from their natural supports, their people, they are disconnected. And that creates stress, anger, frustration, and anxiety, and it exacerbates all of the problems that contribute to their risk and their risk for delinquency. So the answer is yes, yes. The fact that that our children are housed miles and miles away from their families contributes to their risk, increases their needs, and makes them less able to function when they are home. It makes it harder for them to reestablish connection to their school, to reestablish connection with their safe, supportive adults, and to reestablish their sense of purpose and meaning in their community. So that is why research shows that when they are housed in their communities where they can maintain connection to their safe, supportive people and adults, maintain connection to their education and their curriculum, and maintain connection to their community, they just do better. And the reality is, I can tell you this, I've been a judge for a long time, they're coming home, folks. They're coming home. The vast majority of these kids are coming home. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, what have we done when we put them away in a detention center? Have we made them worse or have we made them better? And I know that if we have a juvenile detention center that is operated here in Mecklenburg County by the sheriff, we will make them better. And they will come home better, capable of making better choices and contributing to this community. And that will reduce recidivism. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Could you just give us kind of a sense, you mentioned the next meeting, it sounds like, is going to be some number crunching or budget talk. Is there a date set for that? And also, could you tell me a little bit more about the number discussions? What will that look like?
So we don't have a date set yet. Our next step is to reach out to the county manager, to the sheriff, and to the state, and to find out who from each of those departments need to be at the table, because there is going to be a numbers talk. And we will get those budgetary folks in the room with their bosses and go through this budget that the sheriff has proposed and look for opportunities to try to trim. You heard the sheriff mention that programming is a big piece. The biggest piece of it is staffing. But we also have programs and other auxiliary services that are important. We're going to look for opportunities on where we can maybe streamline some of those things. For example, rather than paying the cost of a full-time psychologist to be on staff, maybe look towards one of our mental health partners in the community to see whether they could bring those resources into the detention center, and they could draw Medicaid funding for doing that. So we're going to be looking at opportunities around that to really try to get the numbers to a point where we can afford to do this in the way that we want it done. Other questions?
Sheriff, what was that total number again that you brought to that?
Let me get it again, 18?
I think
17?
It was 17.8 if I'm not mistaken, and this is after revenue offset.
So 17 million, and we closed, we didn't, let me say this, when it was closed, it was 15, about 15? So we're talking about 2 more million. And so we're gonna have to look at, it's sad that we're gonna say, we're gonna have to look at trimming the cost. I know we all talk about giving the kids the best, and always talking about what we can do for the kids. So if you truly understand this, are you willing to invest into these kids and not shortcome them about budget? And so that's what we're going to have to look at it. I will be extremely disappointed if we try to trim medical, food. I will be disappointed if we trim anything because all of these things that the kids need, but we're going to have to look at something to make this reality. And we've been at it. We've been talking for over 2 years about it. But I think today we came up with, the bottom line is this: hiring 98 people, and here's the budget. Can we trim from that budget so it will be feasible for the state and the county to fund it together? And that's where we're at.
Sheriff, I just got one last question about the budget. You know, is there a threshold of where you can't do this?
Well, no, I don't think we're going to always say that we can.
For sure.
We're going to always do what we can. But when you don't pay for all of the tires on the car and just pay for 3 tires on the car, then your third tire, that third tire is going to go bad quickly. And so we're trying to say this is what's good for today, and that this is sustainable for the future. So we're not just talking about today. How are we going to sustain this? Because once we open the door and have these kids come in, then how can we sustain it for 3, 4, 5 years down the road? And you have to understand, if we still had that center open today, it would cost more today. Why? Because gas is more today than it was 5 years ago. So we have to look at that. Everything is inflated, everything goes up. So again, the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office has always been at the table. We're always willing to do it. And we wanted to do it. The blueprint is what we had before. But now the thing is funding it. If the people in all of these areas want to fund it, we have the keys and we're ready to go.
Okay. Thank you guys for being here. Anybody up here at the front is available for one-on-one conversation if you would choose to do that. The last thing I want to say is that the Children's Alliance is not dropping the ball on this. We are staying with it. We're going to move at warp speed about trying to get folks together in the room so that we can really talk about budgetary issues and see how we can go down this path and move forward. So thank you all for being here. We appreciate your attention to this very important public policy issue.